rather than the speaker, so please focus on me. Happy International Women's Day to you all. It was funny this morning, we had a meeting at work, and I was the only lady in the room, as my colleague said to me, Happy International Women's Day, Stella, and I said, thank you. And they said, so when is it Men's International Day? And I said to them, every other day. The theme for this year's International Women's Day really speaks to me. And the theme really is balance for better. I think I bring a bit of balance in different ways. First, I'm not a lawyer, okay, I'm a banker, I would like to say. And for a banker, when you talk about balance, the first thing that comes to mind is a balance sheet. With a balance sheet comes a lot of pressure, okay. And then having worked in the financial services sector, so I'm going into my biggest challenges. One of the challenges was the fact that I've been working for over 20 years, you don't want to know how long, in an industry which is constantly high pressure. You always have to deliver on the numbers, you always have to deliver, and you always have to justify why you had your role. And I found that you could, as a woman, and probably for anybody, irrespective of the gender, of your gender, run the risk of forgetting who you are, because you're expected to act in a certain way, you're expected to be bullish, you're expected to open the doors, you're expected to close deals. So you want to ask yourself, so who really am I? How did I handle that? I would often take time out. And my friends, some of them haven't actually come here, but they'll know. When it's 31st December, Stella is sending them text messages. So what are your priorities for 2019? What are the 3 things you want to achieve? Because if you do not write them down, you could very easily get caught up in this whirlwind of doing what the world expects you to do. So for me, the first challenge was making sure I didn't get subsumed in all of that pressure and maintaining my individuality. The second one, so I said balance sheet connotes balance for people in the banking or financial services sector. I guess for legal professionals, there's the image of the woman blindfolded and there are 2 scales. But then I think there's a third diagram. I like visuals a lot, so in the slides it's mostly pictures. The third image which really struck me is the wheel of life. Some of us would have come across where you're supposed to consider your life holistically, your career, your relationship, your family, your health, your well-being. So the challenge for me was, life happens. You know, oftentimes we say, time flies, or time flies whether or not you're having fun. But as time is going by, life will happen. So I find that in the midst of this high-powered pressure career in the financial sector, I found myself having to deal with the challenge of having 2 kidney transplants and being on dialysis for 7 years. Now, in that, you still need to remain relevant. So the question for me, the challenge was, how do I remain relevant, irrespective of what curveballs life will throw at me? And so for me, how I managed to deal with that was being flexible. Okay. So even though I had been in banking, what other transferable skills did I have that I could use in some other sphere, such that you remain relevant and visible as a professional woman? And so for a period, I went into consulting, providing recruitment services into financial services. So the thing to just bear in mind, you have to strike a balance, but then when life does hit you with stuff, as it would oftentimes, find a way to be flexible and remain relevant, because people forget you. While I was in the bank, my phone is constantly ringing, everybody wants a loan, and then when something happens, your phone goes dead. You want the peace, but then it gets a bit uncanny, so you have to try to remain relevant. So that's my answer to the first question. Which woman is my greatest inspiration, and what can I learn from her? There are many role models around, and the fact that I'm speaking to women like you, I also find that inspiring. However, I think it's because I only recently started reading Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. Yes, my friend recommended it. And just at the beginning of the book, something struck me, is that this was a woman who got to be the wife of the President of the United States of America, and in her own right, she could have been the president, but she remained grounded. She remembered where she came from. She remembered what her priorities were in life, taking care of the children, not getting carried away by the press or the publicity, and then remembering to maintain her personal brand. I think that having your personal brand is so important. I could speak about that for hours. Every time someone meets you, I promise you within 2-3 minutes, they've taken a decision as to who you are, what you represent, and what they expect from you. So you are constantly on display. What do we show as our brand? And I think for Michelle Obama, she's managed to strike the right balance, which is why I admire her, amongst other women, greatly. Now, the best advice I would give myself, my younger self, which was a long time ago, based on the experience I had, you'll see a picture when you get the slides. It's a huge elephant, obviously with big legs, and this elephant is standing on a ball. So it just has one leg on the ball and it's managing to balance. And so under the diagram it says, balance is the key to life. So cast your mind back also to the key, to the wheel of life. In the midst of all the career progressions, you need to make sure you have the right balance for the sustainable growth of your career. The second advice I would give to my younger self, also visual, it says, procrastinate now and panic later. So while I've done quite a few things, I find that there are some things I'm about to embark on which really I should have done 10 years ago. So the learning point for me, and I'll be telling my youngest self, Stella, do not procrastinate. Time flies, whether or not you're having fun. A third came to mind while I was seated there. And also thinking back, you find over the 20-odd years, I have met some really interesting people, some very influential people. Something that I think the men are slightly better at than we are, is mining our network. So it would be very difficult for me probably to pick up a phone today, and call somebody just because I realize he's now the head of some huge establishment, or because I hadn't actually maintained that relationship. So to my younger self, I would say, Stella, mind those relationships. Keep in contact, you never know. And lastly, what quote will I leave with you to inspire you? It has two quotes inspire me. One I find funny because it's actually some part of the Bible, and that's the only scripture I know to quote. Luke chapter 1 verse 32. It says, "Nothing shall be impossible." But I recently found also that the Prince of Dubai, His Royal Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, that is a quote that he refers to all the time. So my first quote is, "Nothing is impossible." If there is any possibility, I promise you it's in our minds. Then the second quote, and I'll be off in a minute, is from a lady, a lot of you I'm sure would know, Diane von Furstenberg. She really made the wrap dress popular. And her quote was, "Push through that door." So for me, the key word there is push. She says, push through that door, but hold on to your character. Just as I said at the beginning, so you want those goals, you want to achieve those goals, but in the process, do not lose sight of who you are and what is important to you. Thank you.